Russ, we'll start with the pre-show. I don't have anything other than I had to. I'll just say this: it's really humorous the little tasks that you have in your daily life. And today was picking up a toilet, and it's just like
I know way too much about this toilet. I'm backing out.
No.
I really am.
And I'll expose how when it comes to home repair, how bad I am, and just this is just for humor's sake. So we had the original toilet in our house, and it was not working anymore. So we needed to get a new one, and we did. And toilets are not inexpensive, a couple $100 for a good one, and my brother knew somebody who could install it. But it was getting the old one out, which was a pain in the butt. So he installs it, but the hole made from the old toilet was a couple inches deep into the floor, and the new toilet didn't fit exactly right into the spot. So, he said, well, just put a piece of wood, a couple pieces of wood underneath it, and then, grout around it or whatever, and everything will be fine. So I go in and I try to do that, and and I have a bad shoulder, so I'm trying to do basically with one arm, and I'm trying to wedge a piece of wood in there, and I hit the wood the wrong way, and the hammer bounced off the wood and cracked the foundation of the toilet. And now it's basically unusable. It's completely off kilter. So today I had to go spend a couple $100 to go buy the bowl replacement for the toilet.
So what happened to the guy who was going to put it in for you?
He put it in, and basically said, okay, here, I put like a couple shims in there, and all you have to do is put the wood in there, and it'll be fine. And I'm like, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. And like, it's like, it was one of those half-assed job. And I'm not criticizing the guy if he ever watches the show. Believe me, I need you to come in and fix this thing. But
right.
Okay, Ross, start us off with the pre-show.
Sure. So I'm going to start off by calling the Cleveland Browns cowards. And this is why they're cowards. Real Sports doing a good job. They actually had one of the accusers on for Deshaun Watson, and it's heartbreaking to listen to the interview. I don't believe this person made it up, and there's 22 other people, so it can't all be made up. Plus, he's now admitted some other things if you go read. So, but in the end, the NFL didn't hold him accountable enough, so the Browns signed him because they can't help themselves. But while OTAs are going on, the Browns are like, hey, by the way, Deshaun Watson is not available to the media. And they are cowards for doing that, because if you're going to spend this money and defy everybody and defy logic and everything else, are you going to literally do this every time Deshaun Watson's on the field or playing in a game? Because there's going to be people that don't cover football that are going to be covering these games, going to be writing about these games, and you basically brought it on yourself as an organization.
So
the problem with that is, though, I saw this on Twitter, and of course all the lawyers chimed in and said, he's in a lawsuit. I'm not recommending that he talk to the media. He said that's standard operating procedure. He said
these suits are going to drag on forever.
That's what he said. He said, he goes, everything he says is going to be used against him. So
now, was it Baker Mayfield at the OTAs?
No, why would he go to OTAs, Mike? He doesn't have to.
It's because he's never playing for the Browns again.
Yeah, he will play because nobody wants him.
I will bet you he's never playing for the Browns.
Unless he doesn't want to get paid, Mike. He's going to play for them.
Fine. There are enough teams around the NFL that need quarterbacks.
I don't think so. I think you have overrated what Baker Mayfield is.
I'm not saying he's a superstar or anything like that, but he's not going to. Now,
are you going to pay $19 million for a backup?
Well, I mean, there are teams out there that he would be the star.
No, nobody's paying. Kevin, is somebody paying $19 million for a backup?
I'm with you on this, Russ. We talked about this before. I just think it's his inability to put up 300-yard games that cost him. He's a 220 to 240 passing guy per game. So
Yeah,
So I think he's going to, I think he'll end up being in the league, but I think he'll eventually, be a backup.
But I don't think he's going to be a Brown this year, even if Deshaun Watson is suspended.
And he will get suspended.
Right. That's the interesting thing. It's like we don't know whether he's going to get suspended or not because I guess they have to wait until after these trials are over with, if he settles or whatever the NFL investigation.
Well, the season's going to end up starting before a lot of that happens, actually.
Right.
So the NFL will actually have to make a decision at some point, no matter what. It's their league, and they can basically do whatever they want, and then it's up to the PA to fight it. But the NFL will have to make a decision at some point on him.
Yeah, they better have Tyrod Taylor or somebody like that as a third stringer because I don't think Baker Mayfield's showing up.
Okay.
No,
I wouldn't if I was him.
When you started down about the Cowards, I thought you were going to talk about the whole death threats, cadre, St. Louis Blues thing. Now I'm stepping on line.
We can fold. That's where we'll talk about that hockey wise.
All right, we'll stay out of things and we'll talk about it because I don't know much about it. So guys are gonna have to help me out.
Yeah. We'll talk about that, but we'll start with an article that is intrigued the hockey world. I heard about it yesterday being discussed on TSN radio. But we'll start with that. But hello, hockey world. Today is Wednesday, May 25th, 2022.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
Kevin Allen from HockeyBuzz.
And I'm Michael Agello, and this is the HockeyBuzzcast here on HockeyBuzz.com. And the article I was referencing was from Steve Dryden, who who TSN Radio calls the quiz master because I guess he does a lot of the quizzes on the broadcasts. And he wrote an article regarding Connor McDavid being the best player ever. And he the way he broke it up, and I read the article, the way he broke it up was, McDavid in a avenue where, the modern day and players are faster and more skilled than they were in previous generations, that McDavid is the fastest player and arguably the most skilled player overall. I mean, I don't think he has the best shot in the league. He may not be the best passer in the league, but overall, he's probably the best player, and he's having a fantastic playoff right now. We saw last night, he had another couple points. But, Kev, I disagree with the premise because, I can't differentiate between modern era and, say, the era that I grew up in, which was the 70s and 80s, which if you watch a video of games in the 70s and 80s, it looks like it's in slow motion. And, games in the 50s and 60s. So it's tough to say, well, if Connor McDavid went back to the 50s or 60s, being as fast as he is, he'd score 2,000 goals.
Yeah. The biggest problem I think Steve has with is no one seems to get it. Like I've heard and read online, and people want to argue about, the eras at the time and, Gretzky, what he accomplished. And that's not really what he's saying, if I understand it correctly. What he's basically saying, the way I would phrase it is he the most talented player we've ever seen? I think that's what he's saying. And he's defining talent by, he used a quote, I think it was from Craig Button, if I'm not mistaken, where he said, he skates like Bobby Orr. He's got Sidney Crosby's will. He can make plays at such a high level that we've never seen before. And he's got all these combinations. And so therefore, not the greatest player. And he makes a real clear distinction about, he's not saying, because the greatest player would be the guy that has had the greatest impact or been the most, the player that everyone says would be number one. But he says, in his mind, it's the best player. And defining best with it, again, I would simplify it by just saying that he's saying he's the most talented player to ever play, and I really don't have a problem with that. The only argument you can make is I think Bobby Orr, because Bobby Orr was tough, and Bobby Orr could fly, and Bobby Orr changed the game, and so forth. So even in that definition, I think Orr kind of pushes them there. I maybe Connor McDavid is, but I've heard people say just what you did. Well, he doesn't have the best shot in the league. Well, neither did Wayne Gretzky.
I looked at it and I read it twice for the same reasons, and I did feel like Orr satisfies what he's trying to satisfy for McDavid, but I also felt like so does Bill Cook. Now, Bill Cook played in the 30s, but if you look at Bill Cook, and I've gone by everything players have told me about him because I couldn't see him, but players told me, coaches told me, and so he was the fastest guy in the league. He had the best shot. He was, at one point, more than a point a game. He led the league one year with 50 points. Next guy closest to him, I think, was 41, 42. He led the league one year with 33 goals in 44 games. Like, he was dominant to the point where he was the superstar of the league. And I think at that time, had somebody written it, they would have written the same thing about Bill Cook that they just did about Connor McDavid.
Yeah, I would say, even though he didn't use the phrase modern era, I think he was talking modern era. I think it was sort of implied.
Oh, that's fair.
Yeah,
That's
I mean, I don't think he
would be the other guy.
Yeah, I don't think he considered Howie Morantz or any of those guys.
I think it would be Bobby Orr.
Yeah, that's like saying, LeBron James would go back to the 50s and beat, George Mikan or somebody, of course he would. It's like, but I mean, yeah, here's the quote. Button says McDavid has the brain power of Gretzky, the hands of Lemieux, the skating of Orr, and as of this spring, you can add the will of Sidney Crosby.
Yeah.
Right. In one play, Sidney Crosby has won 3 Stanley Cups, and Connor McDavid won 3 series.
Yeah, although that's the one I kept hearing all day. But again, I think that speaks to the greatest as opposed to the best. I mean, the show that you just had on, and I was listening, and the guy just kept saying 10 games. Well, that's not the argument. I mean, I mean, the greatest is a different argument. I mean, if we did the greatest, we're all going to have different players. I might say Gordie Howe. You would say, or I don't know what Russ would say. But they, we're all going to.
I'd probably go Gretzky or Howe, to be honest.
Yeah. And all of us are wrong, and all of us are right. I mean, there's really no right answer to that. I think that's a completely different argument. I just think this is, talent. But I do think it's interesting because I'm surprised at the passion over this, because he went out of his way to try to explain that he was trying to draw a clear differentiation of
I'll
greatest and best.
What this reminds me of. What it reminds me of, growing up, like, boxing was big in my family, right? So my dad said, listen, my favorite boxer, and I still think he was the best all time, was Sugar Ray Robinson. He goes, pound for pound, he was unbelievable. Every weight class he went up in, he won. I know Ali calls himself the greatest, and he is the greatest heavyweight, but I think my dad would say, I think Sugar Ray Robinson was the best fighter ever. And I think that's what he's sort of doing here.
I disagree with the fact that Ali was the greatest heavyweight, but that goes without saying. Because
why?
I think
I'm a Joe Frazier fan, but who are you going to say it's better Ali?
Well, and I'm not going to say Rocky Marciano because he was undefeated. No, I mean I go back to maybe Jack Johnson or or Dempsey or I mean,
you can't go back to Dempsey because he's bare knuckles. Like, he can't do it.
No, if you're talking about somebody who was a paradigm shift in boxing, that's Ali. I mean, but I don't know whether he was the greatest simply because he called himself the greatest. It's arguable.
I'll tell you though, as someone who grew up in that era,
I know.
Everybody just loved Ali.
I didn't, because I was a Frazier fan and he used to torment him. But I respect the guy.
It wasn't George Foreman, although his grill is wonderful. I don't know. I mean, don't get me wrong. And again, last night, I just have to. We're not going to cover the games point by point, but I just have to say this again. If my shoulder wasn't sore, I would like to pat myself on the back, because Rasmus Anderson's goal in the third period is completely inexcusable. And if Edmonton wins this series and goes on to play Colorado, the only reason that they're going to lose is because their goaltending is not good. And last night it was 3-0 Edmonton. They were dominating that game. Smith was bad on the 2 goals that were that Calgary scored to narrow the lead to 3-2, and then the dump in that he loses sight of. And if it wasn't for Ryan Nugent-Hopkins bailing him out, that could have. I said Steve Smith is off the hook, Kev. Mike Smith took Steve Smith off the hook.
But you're right, but like, who cares? You know, like the Oilers are winning. Like it's a
They're
good story. Like
they're not just winning,
it strikes me as you can't see the forest for the trees.
Yeah.
You haven't noticed that. Everybody's talking about how great Connor McDavid's been because you want to be right about the fact that their goaltending is horrible.
They're dominating.
It is. I mean, there's no defending their goaltending. I mean, they should have done something. But hey, stop and smell the roses. Like what Connor McDavid is doing is fantastic.
Now, I do want to have a 1-second debate with Kev because I want to know your answer. Now that we saw what happened in Game 4 with the Rangers,
yeah, it's still Game 4.
It's not.
I talked with Laidlaw about this too as well, and he goes, "Well, it's always Game 4." I said, "Of course it is because it's always the difference." If you win that, if you don't win Game 4, then that win didn't matter. So they had to win
that's
4.
Not true because if they'd have lost 3, you wouldn't even be talking about 4 because the series at some point would be over quickly.
It would be over. Yeah, well, that's the only time it renders in moot if if it ends up 3-0. But even then, then it usually wraps it up.
I'll argue with Laidlaw another day. That's fine.
Yeah, I mean, it's just I don't know how you could not say Game 4 is not
easy because I saw it happening. I'm like, this is the shift in the series happened in 3. I mean,
there are always events in the course of a series that, sometimes happen in games 1 or 2 that are memorable and significant.
That's true.
But ultimately, when you get to Game 4, that's the hinge for what happens. It's either going to be 3-1 or 2-2, or everybody goes home.
Yeah,
and that is a major time in the series.
Yeah,
and there's no other game.
I do think we'll see Freddie Anderson now too. I don't think there's any question about that.
Yeah. Did you think Ranta played poorly?
No.
Yeah, I didn't.
Think they're going to go with Freddie Anderson.
Yeah,
now.
no, I do too because you want that change and moment. Because right now the Rangers got all the momentum.
Which I'll say this, and I know this from covering Freddie for as long as I did. If he's not 100% Russ, this is good news for the Rangers. If he's playing at 80%. I know that Freddie Anderson is one of those players who's a sort of finely tuned machine. And if something is off, he will not play well. Now, if he's 100%, then he's an upgrade over Ranta, but I don't think Ranta's been the issue.
But it's not all on Anderson. Honestly, a lot of it's on Brind'Amour. He's been very stubborn in making changes while the Rangers have made a lot of changes. And he hasn't really matched that. So even though they have a great record at home, Brind'Amour can't really sit on that great record anymore because, honestly, Carolina's got a ton of pressure on them now, where they didn't before.
I agree with you. Yeah, everybody's talking about the fact they haven't won at home. I mean, haven't won on the road, and it's they got to start to wonder. I mean, you're going to have to win on the road if you want to, have success in this as well. But
you can't win a cup if you don't win on the road.
But here's the interesting thought. If you don't have a horse in this race, and it doesn't matter to you who wins the series, you really should root for the Rangers because wouldn't we love to see Shesterkin versus Vasilevsky in the conference final? You have the best goalie of this season against the best goalie in the league. Yeah. And both of them, in particular over the last few games are at top form. I mean, Shesterkin, since he had that blip, has really been good, and Vasilevsky's been unbelievable for 5 games. I mean, really unbelievable.
I said this to Russ after the first period. I thought because the Rangers turned around after I think it was a little bit of a slow start, and they got 2 goals. They were leading 2-0 after 1. The big turning point of that game was the Shesterkin save on Brett Pesce, where he went basically right side to left side and made this unbelievable glove save. And after that, it was a few minutes later that the Rangers scored the opening goal. And I'm like, I mean, that very rarely is a save early in the game a turning point. And I thought that was a turning point in that game. So he's a difference maker.
There were 2 things about that. That was the fastest I had ever seen him do that. And he was not like in the crease. He was out of the crease.
Yeah,
he was hyper aggressive about it. And then the puck ended up turning into like a pop fly, and he caught it like a baseball. Like the whole thing was impressive, and he did it nonchalantly almost. Like that was just like, hey, I can do this. Like I know I can do.
Yeah, the other thing too, I think we had confirmation of Lindgren's broken foot when the goal was scored, and everybody went over and congratulated Lindgren when he didn't score the goal. You don't normally see that. Like that was their way of saying we know what you're going through to play.
Yeah.
Without
him, their defense is nowhere near the same.
And I have to say, as a sort of an overview of this series, and we can talk about this in St. Louis, Colorado, is the team that Carolina seems to be the most distracted team in that series. They're focused on, the antics of D'Angelo, I think, are a complete sideshow, but the Max Domi stuff, he's trying to play like his dad. And that's not he's a skill player, and he's trying to be, because he's on the fourth line, he's trying to stir it up, and he's trying to be more goonish. And he's sort of playing right into the Rangers' hands because Ryan Reeves was trying to goad him into a fight. And it's like, that's not Max Domi's game. He should be a skill guy.
I'm actually glad that he was smart enough not to fight him, because that would have been ridiculous.
Yeah, that would have been.
And for Reeves even to be involved in that. I mean, it's like the fighter's code. You don't fight down.
You know what it is? It's the fighter's code, but his last name is Domi, and I do think that means something, unfortunately.
I don't know, but I agree with Mike, though. It's been stupid by Carolina. So
I mean, D'Angelo again, he's arguing at the end of the game. And the Rangers are looking at him like, we don't care.
I didn't think that this was going to be a distraction, but the ex-Ranger factor, Brady Shea,
it's an issue.
Yeah, it's an issue because all these ex-Rangers want to stick it to the Rangers so badly that I think they're sort of playing outside of their loop.
Even Shea, Shea is a very good defenseman, but he is prone to, like I said, if you're cycling the puck, he will hold guys in the corner because he's a physical guy. And lo and behold, he did that at least once or twice already in this series. Brendan Smith.
I'm behind. What is Shea? What's his issue with the Rangers? I don't understand.
Well, they traded him.
I just think it's just, hey, I want to beat them because they didn't believe in me. That's all I think it is.
Right.
Nobody did anything wrong.
They traded him after they signed him to an extension. Now that was probably the slap in the face. I mean, D'Angelo, obviously,
I get D'Angelo. I didn't see that Shea was mad about the trade. I mean, he went to a good team. They were rebuilding.
I think the Rangers always seem to have a target on their back, like, hey, you guys didn't believe in me. I could have made you guys.
Yeah, I get it.
When you play at MSG, players get amped up too. They do.
Yeah.
I think the only one who has sort of played without – Ronta's been the ex-Ranger who has sort of showed up the best.
Right. That's true.
But the rest of them, I think, have been underwhelming. So,
again, like I said, this one's up to Brind'Amour because, the last few years, Brind'Amour hasn't been able to get him over the hump. He's had issues, no question. We've talked about goaltending, but this is a really talented roster, and the goaltending's good enough. They got to win this series. Like, if they don't win the series, they seriously have to look at things and say, okay, we're still going to make the playoffs next year, but we got to change up some things that we're doing here. Probably a little more than they had in the past. If they win, then they're not going to change anything.
Now, we only have one game tonight, so we're going to talk about the series that was scheduled for tonight, but now is not playing because Tampa Bay dispatched the Florida Panthers in 4 straight, and the Panthers were having their exit interviews today, Kev. And I think everybody's a little bit surprised that it wasn't easy because Tampa Bay had some difficult times in that series, but nobody expected a 4-game sweep. Nobody expected Tampa Bay to they're in the conference finals for the 3rd straight year. But everybody's looking at Florida, and now this is a year of transition and a lot of question marks because they have players that they traded for. They loaded up at the deadline. They traded for Sherrod. They traded for Giroux. They gave up, I think, 3 future first-round picks. And now Bill Zito's got a lot of decisions that he has to make.
He does, but I'll harken back to a column I wrote after for USA Today after the Columbus Blue Jackets took care of the Tampa Bay Lightning, and my column was, "Don't overreact to one series. That this is the NHL, and yes, you may need to make some changes. You're going to need to get tougher, because they really ran you out of the rink in that series. And that's what I would say to the Florida Panthers. You got beat by Vasilevsky playing really unbelievable goaltending.
Yeah.
He gave up 3 goals in the sweep. He had, over his last 5 games, save percentages over .968 in all of those games. He played unbelievable. You got 49 shots in the last game, and you still didn't get a goal. And I don't think that was on the Panthers. I think that was on Vasilevsky.
Yeah, I have some quotes. I'm not going to read the one from Barkov, but it was very positive about Burnett. The one from Zito is the one we need, and this is from Colby Guy's Twitter account. Zito asked about Burnett's future. I'm not going to get into that discussion. We're going to take a little bit of time here, let the emotions settle, go through a decision-making process for the right reasons. That's bad news for Andrew Burnett.
Yeah, but you're talking about a guy who was a nominee for the Jack Adams, and you have to take a little time. And he
wants to take a little time because he wants to see, is Trotz going to still be out there? Can I hire Quenneville? That's what Zito's going to be looking into when he's taking a little time.
He doesn't want to hire Quenneville.
Probably not, because they didn't get along anyhow, right?
What about
I think they're fine. But
what about Torts?
Torts
could be another one, but I think Torts likes.
I think Zito probably saw enough of him in Columbus. I would guess.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point.
But I just think this series wasn't as much damning to Burnett as the fact that defensively they were challenged all season long, and I know that Ekblad was out, but they never got any better. And what do they always say about coaching? The one thing you can always make your team better. You can't make them better offensively if they're not talented enough, but you can make it better defensively. And we never saw this improved defensive play. At least I never.
With Quenneville, they wouldn't have won the series.
Pardon me?
I think they would have had a much better.
I don't know if they would have won the series or not. I don't know. I don't think we can say. But I just think Burnett is not experienced enough, and I think it was a factor. He wasn't able to make the defense better, and so he may be a price for that. But I don't think losing the series is what.
No, but what the other factor is, and this is what I'm sort of thinking of too. They have some dead cap space. They're going to have to make some moves. So now next year he's going to have probably a less talented team, and he couldn't get this one over the hump with the best team in the league. And that's maybe where you have to look at the coach to say, it may not be your fault, but I got to get somebody who's maybe more experienced there.
This was the year for them to go for it, in the sense that Barkov's contract extension kicks in next year. So does Verhaeghe's. That's an increase of about, I think, $7 million more for those two players. Huberdeau is a year away from unrestricted free agency. They lose Marchment. They lose a couple other players. I mean, that's why I think you're right, Kev. They shouldn't overreact, but the team is going to be different. And then the Giroux thing, Giroux basically said what Bill Zito said. Well, I'm going to take some time and wait and see. Yeah, he's going to wait and see. But if they can't offer him a competitive wage, if he's going to get like $3 or $4 million more a year from Ottawa or some team like that.
Plus, I think Pat Brisson's telling Giroux, wait and see how the coaches settle with all these different teams and who needs a player like you.
Yeah, but I mean, I do think, and Eklund has pointed this out, I think Giroux is a little bit of a unique player because he has certain things, like he really didn't want to play in the West. Right. I mean, that was pretty clear. So he wants to stay on the East Coast. Mm-hmm. But the deal is there are going to be several teams that could be looking for centers. Right. And so, Boston could be looking for centers. Giroux would look pretty good in
Montreal.
Yeah, I don't see him going to Montreal.
No, but Montreal. I mean, okay, Boston definitely. Washington,
Pittsburgh could be Pittsburgh.
Washington. If Backstrom has to have a year-long surgery, which was, or might retire because of the injuries that he has, so that's a possibility. And let's not rule out the Rangers, although it seems like Copp is all but signed. I think
Copp is going to get re-signed. I agree with that.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't want to say that for sure because we really don't know. Sure. But there's been too much speculation, so that he's going to resign. But boy, he would look good in the Rangers. I watched the Panthers with Giroux, and I really like how he fits there. So, we'll see how that goes.
I think the only team that would be off limits for Giroux, like in his own mind, might be the Rangers, just because he maybe want to go back and do something with the Flyers someday, and they are like mortal enemies. I think anybody else is fair game.
So, I think you're right on that. He might not like. Well, but he's friends with Crosby, right?
Right, but that's why I think he would go to Pittsburgh over the Rangers because
that would be dependent on Malkin not signing there.
Right.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. And I do think Malkin's coming back, but it's just a hunch more than anything else. So.
Yeah. Now I'll just bring this up because I brought it up yesterday, Kevin. I took a lot of heat for it on social media, because I said, okay, the way Tampa was playing against Florida and how dominant they were, and they weren't completely dominant. They won one game with 3 seconds left to go, but the real Tampa started to show up in about Game 6 of the Toronto series, and I essentially said, don't let how awesome Tampa looks right now influence you in terms of the Leafs, because Tampa wasn't. You even said Tampa wasn't playing that good at the beginning of the Toronto series. Toronto had an opportunity to take control of that series in Games 2 and Game 4, even in Game 6, and there were people who were responding to me saying, you can't change this up because they got to Game 7 against Tampa Bay. And what if Tampa Bay wins the Stanley Cup? Great. That's fantastic. The Leafs still lost in the first round. Yeah. I'm not saying, you cannot keep living on the fact that we came close.
No, I mean, I see your point on that. I really do. But, because Toronto had a chance to win that series.
Yes.
They really did. And, the problem, but it goes back to my argument about, we can't say all the time a Game 7 is a coin flip, but then say, well, you lost the Game 7. So, therefore, I mean, because we acknowledge that it can go either way. So,
that's why, hey, you had a chance to win Game 6. That's the difference here.
Yeah.
Up tails 5 times.
You win 6. We don't ever talk about the Leafs thing ever again. It goes away. It goes away.
Yeah, that'd be a great lead, by the way. A Game 7 is a coin flip, but it's been tails for the Maple Leafs.
tails 5 times. So,
but it's a great point. I don't know, but the problem is when you start talking about, okay, over this period of time we haven't done anything, but what do you do? You know what I mean? Like what is it that we think the Maple Leafs need to do? Changing. Trading Nylander and bringing in somebody else,
I'll tell you, thing number 1, they have to get a goalie.
Yes.
Yeah. And you don't think Campbell's coming back?
I don't know if they can afford him.
I don't think Campbell's coming back for what they're willing to pay him. I think, Russ said, Kurt Overhart is his agent. The Leafs tried to sign him last year before the season. They offered him 3 years at about $275. He turned it down, and so he bet on himself. Had a really good year, an all-star year. He's probably going to ask in the, I would say, probably 4.5 to 5 range. And I don't think they want to pay him that much. They like him a lot. They think he's a great guy, but I don't think they think he's an elite goaltender that they have to pay him $5 million. So
here's my one question, though. And this is what I would ask Kyle Dubas, too, if I had a one-on-one with him. Mm-hmm. Why would you offer Campbell less than you're paying Mrazek?
Well,
I think he's going to sign for that as a number 1.
It was before they signed Mrazek.
But he already was on track. It was before? Okay.
It was before July 1st. It was before free agency.
Okay.
So now, if the Edmonton Oilers got Jack Campbell, would you say they fixed their goaltending or not?
I'd say they've improved it.
They've improved it, but their defense is still poor.
No, I would say it's more fixed than it's ever been.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're having Mike Smith as the backup for Jack Campbell,
I can live with that.
That's
well, let me ask you this, Mike, because I really don't know the answer to this. Do you just not like what the Oilers have done with their defensive goaltending, or do you just hate the Oilers?
No, I don't like.
Good question.
I don't like the Oilers as an organization, but
okay.
I'm being dispassionate in this sense. Connor McDavid and Draisaitl are 2 of the best players in the league, and it's an affront to me that the organization that I can recognize and laymen can recognize that team is one good goaltender away from being a Stanley Cup contender, and they refused to do it. They tried to get Markstrom. They tried to get Grubauer, I think it was. They tried to trade for I think they tried to trade for Darcy Kemper and weren't willing. There was like 3 or 4 times when they should have gotten a goaltender. And I think in the end, the lack of a goaltender is going to kill them this year. If they ever smarten up and get the goaltender, they could win the cup. They have enough talent. I don't think that trading for a 38-year-old Duncan Keith, I mean, even though he's had a positive influence on Evan Bouchard, was a good move. I think Darnell Nurse is a great defenseman. Bouchard is becoming really good. Tyson Berry is a good power play quarterback. Some of the pieces there are good there, but the accumulation is just not good enough. And they could win, consecutive cups. They could be a perennial Stanley Cup contender if they would just make the moves.
I'll tell you, the Ethan Bear trade was bad.
Yes,
flat out bad. But it also hurt with Clefbaum getting hurt. That's a big blow.
Yes.
Yeah, that was. Well, I don't agree with your assessment of the team. Their defense needs work. Their goaltending has been atrocious. I shouldn't say it's been atrocious, but it's not good enough, because Mike Smith actually has played well last year, and this year in spurts he's been fine. Right.
Yeah, but I'll tell you, Kev, there was a play yesterday. He literally made a save, and the only reason I know this, I know what a middle-aged guy who looks like he's out of breath looks like. And Mike Smith literally, when he went post to post, he dove at a puck because he figured that was the only chance he could get at it, was just like flat out diving like he was diving in a pool. And he did manage to do it, but it was like way too much of an effort to just do that. Like that's where they need to fix their goaltending.
Yeah.
I do think the most fascinating thing, and we'll talk about this as the offseason comes about and evolves. I do think the most fascinating thing this offseason is going to be the goaltending carousel, because I think there are so many teams that need goalies, some of them that don't have the cap space. I think that goalies that have like term left, like Varlamov, are going to be in the mix. I don't know whether Gibson is going to get traded or Hellebuck is going to get traded. I would find it hard to believe that Winnipeg would trade Hellebuck with years left in his contract just because he had an off year, or a guy like Mackenzie.
No, they won't trade him.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this, Mike.
Yeah.
Would you sign Husso to be your number one? I wouldn't now. I think he needs more seasoning.
The only way I would sign Husso as a potential number one is if I could get him for the amount that they offered Campbell last year, which was like around under $3 million. I don't think he's going to take that. I think there'll be enough suitors out there in a goaltending market that he's going to get 3.5.
I don't know about that.
Yeah, I don't either. I mean, he's not exactly proven. He's had like a half season,
Right,
so.
Yeah.
But I mean, he could end up as, say, like Buffalo's goalie.
Yeah,
something like that.
Good.
But let's not forget that backups got $4 million last year.
Yeah.
So
one B's like
Bernier, Bernier and
Grice.
And Mrazek got, what was Mrazek? 3.8. Close to 4.
Yep.
I could see him, and Chicago needs a goalie.
Chicago needs 2 goalies. Arizona needs a goalie.
They have Melka. He signed multi-year deal.
You need 2 goalies.
Yeah, they'll get another cheap goalie.
Yeah, they'll get a cheap goalie. I'll tell you, if I was Edmonton, I would just bring up Skinner. How old is Skinner, Russ?
I think he's 26, 25, 26.
Yeah, I'd bring him up and make him the backup.
He's that age now, Mike, I think.
Yeah, I'd bring him up, make him the backup, and then get a veteran goalie. But I was just doing a freelance piece where I was assessing what
He's still 23? Okay, I thought he was a little older.
Who was that?
Skinner's 23.
I thought he was a little older. So
yeah, that's
the hesitancy, because 23. I guess they don't feel like he's.
Yeah, but I might try it, because then you don't have to get 2 goalies. Because I think you got to move out both goalies, regardless of what happens.
You do.
With Edmonton.
Well, Skinner should be one of them. I'm with you on that.
Koskinen's a UFA, so they don't have to do anything.
Yeah, no, I know that, but
drive him to the airport. That's all they have to do.
Yeah,
but the one that's going to be intriguing, and based on the way he played in the playoffs this year, you would think that maybe they wouldn't do anything. And the organization has a history of keeping their legacy players. Is the LA Kings with Quick. Quick's got a year left at 5'8". They've got Cal Peterson signed over $5 million. They, obviously they see him as the heir apparent. Will they trade quick with a year left, maybe his last year because he's 36 years old, or will they just keep him and spend over $11 million on 2 goaltenders?
I think they would keep him because they made the playoffs, and they might feel with a healthy Doughty they could actually make a run.
Kev, what do you think?
They'll be better next year too.
Yeah.
So I would say they keep him as well.
Yeah, and I think LA is going to be one of those teams because they have a lot of cap space. They're going to be players either in free agency or because they have so many young assets and draft picks. They're going to, if there's a team that would go after a guy like a Nylander if Toronto traded him, it would be LA because they have young cheap assets that Toronto would want back in the deal. And
no, they won't do that because they can sign Philip Forsberg. That's why I think they're going after.
That's a great point too.
Right.
Yeah. I think they're going after Philip.
I mean, I'm taking Forsberg over Nylander.
Sure. But okay. But if Forsberg costs them what he supposedly would cost Nashville, which is $9 million,
I think they'd be happy to pay it.
Okay. I mean, I think Forsberg's a better player than Nylander, obviously. Now St. Louis, Colorado is the only game tonight. That series is 3-1 in favor of the Avalanche, and everything Kev got sort of distracted with the whole Nazem Kadri thing. And what I said yesterday was, because I've never seen a team get more out of focus than St. Louis did in Game 4 because Perron and I think it was Parayko, Russ, that tried to hit Kadri. Yeah, and Perron attacked him at right
on. Yeah, with the goal score after his goal score,
and he got fined $5,000. But that in a way cost them the game because they were down 3-1, but they were sort of turning it around. Then it's a 5-on-3. Colorado doesn't score on the 5-on-3, but Kadri scores with the dagger to make it 4-1. And after that, the game was over with. I mean, there was
I don't understand that. Even if you're into that kind of thing, like if you're into retribution and all that and protecting your teammates and all that, you don't do it in the middle of a playoff series. You wait till next year. I mean, the famed Gordie Howe stories was he would wait years before he'd pay back. Stan Mikita, I remember the late Stan Mikita telling me the story of, they kept telling him not to do anything to Gordie because he'd pay you back, and he did. And every time he'd play the Red Wings for the next year or two, he'd think, wow, Gordie's coming after me today, but it never happened. And finally he said, well, that was all a bunch of bunk. He's not that kind of guy.
Dynamic here, though, Kev, because I really looked into it with the Kadri thing. And, Kadri had that 8-game suspension. He tried to take off Justin Falk's head last year.
Right.
Conversely, Binnington had the stick swinging incident, which he said wasn't a great moment for him swinging at a Kadri after a kerfuffle. And he wasn't even in the kerfuffle. This was after it was breaking up. Then you had what happened this year. And, of course, everybody agrees no way should there be any death threats or any of these things going on in his Instagram account, where I even said, Kev, if I were the NHL, I would try and trace some of these people. If any of them are season ticket holders, I would ban them from being a season ticket holder.
Russ, I think the FBI is investigating this.
And they should. They should. But I'm saying the league could do something, too.
Well,
they could police their own fans if they want to.
So, in reacting to my story, are you saying that they had every right to go after Kadri in the game now?
No. What I'm saying is, because I'm making more.
But my point is they should have, if they were going to do it, they should have done it a year from now, not now.
No, you're right about that. But here's the other part of it. This is where it gets complicated. Then I'll let you go, Mike. The complicated part is, what if Kadri goes after one of their guys again, which he might.
Right.
That complicates it then. Because everybody's feeling bad for Kadri now, but he's also that guy that's on the other side a lot of times too.
Yeah, see that was the whole point. What I think St. Louis was thinking, and maybe it's diabolical. They're thinking Kadri is a loose cannon. He lost his cool twice with Toronto, 3-game suspension in the playoffs. He lost his cool last year with the Justin Falk hit. We're going to try to, he's important to the Avalanche. We're going to try to goad him into another suspension. But this was even before what he did to Binnington. So, and I thought what he did to Binnington, pushing Rosen into him, making contact was purposeful. What I think they were trying to do was, okay, let's antagonize him. Let's see if we can get him to swing a stick or do something stupid, because he's done things stupid before. But the mentality of Kadri here, Kev, is I have a chance to make big money in free agency if I just keep my powder dry and not do something stupid. And I think that motivation is keeping him in check, because normally he would not be in check. Normally he would do something stupid because he's done it before.
I don't know. We may be overthinking this. I think he's trying to win a cup right now. I think he's trying to win. He's trying to win, and all this stuff. Yeah, it's all true. It's all reality and everything else. But in the heat of the battle, I think, to me, it's been silly what the St. Louis Blues have tried to do. They've lost focus.
They have lost
by putting all this emphasis on him. You got to move on. You're trying to win here. That's the most important thing. And I understand all that. I understand their anger. I understand his reputation. I understand what he does, but ultimately you're just trying to win a series here. And I think they've hurt their chances of doing that by putting way too much emphasis on him. Now, the one thing I wanted to ask you about, because I wasn't really thinking this, but I've seen mentioned on Twitter, is it true that the St. Louis Blues have not made a statement, condemning the
Berube made
people?
One today. The other day, Berube said no comment, and then he explained that the no comment didn't mean that he was okay with people threatening Kadri. He said that's wrong.
Oh, okay, because they were taking a lot of grief, the Blues were, for not even issuing a statement saying,
and they didn't. And then Berube finally said something today.
Yeah, the only statements I saw were from the league and the NHLPA saying that there was no place for these offensive remarks. And Sasky Stewart, who I know used to work not PR, but she used to handle the Leafs Twitter account. She said, the comments that have been made about Kadri in response to this, that's nothing compared to the comments that they saw about Kadri when she was handling social media for the Leafs. So, him being a Lebanese Muslim and being a prominent player has been a spark point for a number of years. And he's been in the league since I think 2010. So, but there's no call for this. It's absolutely obscene. And I really hope that, the people who threatened him, maybe not thrown in jail, but if they are season ticket holders, lose your season tickets. Screw that.
I'm okay if they get some time in jail.
Well,
because again, the funny thing is like someone like Kadri is sort of used to it, even though he shouldn't be.
Right.
But his wife shouldn't be used to it, and I think she did the right thing by exposing them.
Definitely. Couple questions in the chat and then one in the show. Esmir, do you think Ottawa will trade their first for immediate help?
Nope.
I don't think Ottawa will. Even I don't know where they're picking. Probably in the top 5. But
I think they're. Well, let's see. Arizona's 3. I think they're 4 or 5. I think.
Yeah, but there is talk, and there's been consistent talk, and this is the strange thing, Kev, about New Jersey.
The Flyers are 5. They might be 4.
About New Jersey being willing to trade. They were willing to trade their first round pick before the lottery, and now they're second, and they're still supposedly willing to trade that pick. I mean, is that just like fodder for the media?
Yeah, I would be shocked if they traded it. I mean, I get that they want to improve immediately, but you don't.
Oh, they're 7th, Ottawa.
They're 7th. Okay.
Yeah, you don't move ahead by giving up early draft picks. So you're going to get an exceptional player at that pick, and I don't know who you're going to get that's going to replace that, but. They're either going to get the big forward from Slovakia,
Slokowski.
Or they're going to get Logan Cooley, and who's going to trade you a player that will be better than that? So I just don't see it. So.
I mean, the thing is, it's like it would have to be a player who is under contract at a reasonable amount that they could hold on to for a number of years, and teams aren't trading those players.
No, that's the whole thing. If Ottawa were to get a player for that pick, they'd get a player with probably a couple of years of term that has no interest in re-signing with them, and that's why they wouldn't do it.
Right.
So I mean, they need to get to the cap floor, and that's why all the Giroux talk, because they could spend, close to what Giroux.
But I don't think Giroux's ready to go there yet. That's the whole thing.
He's not going to Ottawa.
Yeah, I mean, you think that he goes there in the last couple of years?
Last couple of years,
like,
it was
maybe.
Yeah,
not right now.
Okay, one or two more questions, quick ones here. Let's see here. Anthony asks, what goaltenders do you see the Capitals targeting this offseason? I say Varlamov because they had him before. Yeah. He's got 1 year left in his contract. If Backstrom goes on long-term injury, then they would have the cap space. And Vanacek, I believe is a UFA.
Yeah, he's a UFA, and I don't think they really even want him anymore.
Right.
And I think Varlamov would be a good conduit for Samsonov, because I think Samsonov is getting better, but just not fast enough. And I think I think Varlamov could help him. And I think there wouldn't be any issue with the goalies. They would actually be on the same page, I think.
I don't know what from what I hear, Varlamov has been a pain. He doesn't want to leave, so he's not making it easy to deal him. So we'll see whether he wants to go there. I just wonder, would they go back? And again, depending on his injury report, would they prefer to go back to a guy like Holtby, who they know and like and was popular?
I think do it for 1 year, I think.
Yeah, and he wouldn't cost you any assets. Mm-hmm. And it would be a short term. So. I don't know. I think Varlamov's a better choice, in my opinion. but
I guess he won't be for a year.
He's got a 16-team no trade list, Varlamov. So
he can rule
out half the league.
Yeah, you can rule out half the league, and it's.
You know why he doesn't want to leave? Long Island's a nice, cushy place to live. You got Brooklyn with the whole Russian community there. He enjoys it.
No, he does, and he really doesn't want to leave, and. And I think they're worried a little bit. He would even just say, I'm going home, so.
And last question, Anthony, again, with a good one here. Does Seattle make any big time moves this summer for a star name? Well, okay. I don't know if John Klingberg's a star name, but I had heard, I believe Pierre LeBrun and Chris Johnston mention that Seattle is looking, because offense is something they need to generate, because they didn't really score a lot of goals, that, they have the cap space, and that Klingberg is a offensive generator, that he in Seattle might be a fit. So, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't see them going. See, Klingberg is in his late 20s. He's still young enough that he could be an impact player when they're ready to contend. Whereas a guy like Malkin, if Malkin doesn't go back to Pittsburgh.
Yeah, Klingberg's not really like a Hackstall kind of guy.
I know.
That would be the worry for me, and that's why I'm not sure they would do that. I think they'll try and make some trades because they have a lot of assets. Like, if I were them, I would call up the Oilers and say, hey, maybe we'll trade you a defenseman for Yamamoto. He's from this area. He'd be beloved here, and he could do a lot with our team. There might be something there. I mean, I think they might look at those kinds of things. I don't think they're going to spend a ton of money, but I think they'll spend some money.
Yeah, I think it's a possibility they'll go after Klingberg, but I think he'll have other options, and I believe he would go to a contender before he would go to Seattle. But I know he wants to stay there. I looked at this earlier today for something I was doing, and what hurts them is they need Jamie Benn to be about a $4 or $5 million player in that time. For all the complaining that people do when they link Sagan with Ben. I mean, Sagan was a productive player. I mean, Sagan had 25 goals.
And I still think next year he'll be even more recovered. When you get 2 hips done at once, it takes a while.
I don't lump him in with Ben. Like, when I watched Dallas play, I noticed Sagan, but Ben has just kind of disappeared.
Yeah. Sagan's 29 years old, and like Russ said, he's coming off major surgery. Ben's 32.
Yeah.
And I looked into what his contract would be in terms of buyout. It's all signing bonus, so there's no cap relief. So the only way that, and I think he's got a no move clause, so they're stuck with him for another. I think.
Here's the answer to Anthony here: does Ron Francis need to hit a home run on a trade soon? No, because the expectations are very low for Seattle, like they should be for that kind of team. So Francis is safe. There's nothing.
And they really are playing with house money, because they're just like Vegas. Like, they were an instant cash cow. I mean, they've got a long waiting list. People want to be sponsors. They're the hot team in town. I mean, they've got it all going on. They just don't have a winning team. They just didn't get. I didn't think Ron did a terrific job assembling a team.
No.
But they didn't have the same opportunities that Vegas had.
No,
I think they
people
did.
got the other GMs got smarter.
And I think they did a good job at the deadline accumulating assets. So
they've got draft picks up the wazoo.
Yeah, so all they do is convert those into good players 3 or 4 years down the road. Okay, good show, guys. We'll be back tomorrow with another edition of the Hockey Buzzcast. For Kevin Allen, for Russ Cohen, I'm Michael Agello. Thank you for watching. And remember, without the buzz, it's just hockey.